I am Tasha T, the host of Mindful Nuggets podcast. I am a Christian and a mental health therapist. I wanted to create a safe space for women, Christian women, to come and learn about mental health while they're on their own mental health journey. Mindful Nuggets is a podcast that will encourage you spiritually and mentally. We have mindful conversations that will help you as you go through your day-to-day life. You will be able to thrive mentally. You will want to get a seat and a notebook so you can capture these nuggets. Welcome to Mindful Nuggets Podcast by Tasha T. I am your host. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mindful Nuggets Podcast. I am your host, Tasha T. Welcome back to Mindful Nuggets. Today, I do not have a special guest. As a matter of fact, you are my guest. I want you to just really sit down, get a notebook out, and just do some reflection during this time. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that you need in your life, I need in my life, we all need it. Because, in the words of Nedra Tawwab, boundaries are the gateway to healthy relationships. We're going to talk today about boundaries. In order for us to have healthy relationships in life with our coworkers, our children, our family, friends, neighbors, whoever, we have to set boundaries. So that was what she put. But also, she says that boundaries are expectations and needs that help you feel safe and comfortable in your relationships. So, when we are clear about our values and our priorities, we're able to set boundaries. I want to also give you a different definition. This is what therapistaid.com says. It says personal boundaries are the limits and rules we set for ourselves within relationships. A person with healthy boundaries can say no to others when they want to, but they are also comfortable opening themselves up to intimacy and close relationships. So those are boundaries. Those are what healthy boundaries look like. It's about being able to say no when needed and to be able to say yes when needed. But today, I want to talk about the issue that we have with boundaries. Sometimes it can be challenging to set boundaries with other people. I know in my own life, I've had to set boundaries at work, in my family, just in different situations. And those boundaries were a way of me preserving my energy, my sanity. There are some people who believe when you set boundaries, you are being selfish. And I can see where they're coming from with that. Especially as believers, we're taught to bear one another's burdens. But at the same time, where does that end? If helping you is hurting me, is that really helping you? So I think we just really need to be clear about what it means to bear one another burdens. I think in our life, God will place people across our path who we are to minister to, who we are to help. And I think it's just really important to be in tune with Him and what He says about who we should be helping and ministering to. And that we're not just out here trying to save the entire world, because I don't know about you, but I don't have a cape. I was not created to be everything to everybody. So it's important for me to set boundaries. And so when it comes to this book that Nedra Glover Tawwab wrote, her book is called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, Reclaiming a Guide to Reclaiming Yourself. But one thing that she talks about is setting boundaries with yourself. I thought that was very interesting. Sometimes we might have goals that we want to accomplish. We'll set these goals and we don't follow through. So it's just really important that we make ourselves a priority. I think that's the most important thing. Just have those clear values for yourself. Make yourself a priority, just knowing what you are able to do and just knowing when you have to take a break. It's okay to take a break. We have these desires to do all these wonderful, great things. And yes, it is important for us to do what the Lord has called for us to do. But Jesus Christ also rested. So we're supposed to rest. We're not supposed to always be on the go. So we have 7 days in the week. And so we should be intentional about taking time to rest. According to the Bible, it talks about Sunday being that day of rest. So that right there is just having that one day of rest. I think that is having boundaries with yourself. Setting a appropriate bedtime for yourself and sticking with that. I know for years I wanted to get up at a certain time every day and I just struggled to do it. At one point I was able to get up at a certain time without any issue, but here in these past few years it's been a struggle for me. But here lately I have been more intentional about waking up at a certain time. So I have a certain morning routine I want to do. So I have to be awake at a certain time in order to partake in that routine. So it's just important that I maintain that boundary with myself. So, again, we're going to talk about boundaries. So, I want to share some reasons that we might have a hard time setting boundaries. Okay. Number one, and these are things that Nedra said. I'm not going to read everything from out of her books. I want you all to go and get her book yourself. But one thing she said is you fear being mean. So, a lot of times we do not want to hurt anyone's feelings. We might have this tendency to be a people pleaser, and we are afraid that if we set a boundary with somebody, that they'll think that we're being mean, will hurt their feelings. But a lot of times, what actually ends up happening, I don't know if this happens to you. There have been times that I have agreed to do things for people, and after I realized what I agreed to do, I would regret doing that thing. So I've discovered that it's really important that my heart be into whatever I'm doing and that I'm not just doing it because I'm trying to please someone else. But all right, so on to the next. They're talking about how sometimes we might be anxious about having future interactions with the person, and that could cause us to have a hard time setting boundaries. So sometimes we set boundaries with people, or we just might have a desire to set a boundary with somebody, and we're concerned about how things are going to go after we've set that boundary with that person. So we cannot predict the future. And if we set a boundary with somebody and they don't like it, that's on them. As long as we're communicating our boundaries in a respectful way, then that person can choose to accept it or not. If they have an issue with it, that says more about them than it is about us. So let me give you an example. So let's say someone comes to your house on a Saturday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? You're married, you got children, you have small children. So this person comes to your house at 7 o'clock in the morning. They wake up your children, they wake up your husband who's worked overnight. That's just a disruption to your entire way of doing things. So if you're anxious about telling this person, hey, this is not a good time for me because you're concerned of how they're going to interact with you in the future, that shows that you have an issue with being a people pleaser, and that needs to be looked into. And I also want to let you all know that this podcast, Mindful Nuggets, I'm here to provide information, education. This does not replace seeing a licensed mental health professional. It does not provide a substitution for that. So if after this conversation you're like, man, I probably should sit down and talk to somebody about this, I would encourage you to reach out to someone that could walk you through the issue that you might be having and help you to get to the root of what's going on so you're able to work through it. All right. So another reason is that you have no clue where to start. So a lot of times we have a hard time setting boundaries because maybe we have not seen anybody else set those in our life. Maybe we've been around people who were people pleasers, or we just have been around people who just don't know how to communicate and have healthy interactions with people. So we just don't know where to start when it comes to setting these boundaries. So we, naturally for us, we just do what's needed to make sure people are happy. We don't really know how to be firm and set those boundaries. And the last thing I want to say is that we feel powerless and not sure that boundaries would help. So we just cannot understand how setting a boundary could help our relationship with somebody else. Again, it just kind of goes to what you might have observed from other people, what kind of interactions you might have had. So those are reasons. You fear being mean. You're anxious about future interactions after a boundary has been set. You have no clue where to start, and you feel powerless, and you're not sure that boundaries would help. So again, those are some reasons why people have a hard time setting boundaries. So one way to set boundaries is to just be direct. Identify what is it that you want from this person. Let's just go back to that scenario. This person's coming to your house at 7 o'clock in the morning. You got 2 kids, you got a husband, all this other stuff going on. So setting a boundary with that person, like, hey, LaQuisha, I appreciate you stopping by to visit me, but I would prefer for you to call before you come over. Is that rude? No, it's not. It's not rude. You're being specific, you're being direct, and LaQuisha can either accept, hey, I should call before I go over to so and so's house, or not. If LaQuisha decides to come over to your house again and ring that doorbell, you just don't answer because you've already given her the boundary and she has chosen not to honor your boundary. So let's say you have an issue with, it could be your neighbor is parking their car in your driveway, right? This is your driveway. You're paying the mortgage. You're paying all these other bills, and they have parked their car in your driveway, or they're blocking your driveway. You just say, hey, Bob, I see that your car is in front of my house. I would appreciate if you did not park your car in my driveway. So it's just important that we're honest about what we want, we're direct about it, and we're respectful. When we do those three things, we're able to set boundaries. So we talked today about some different struggles that come with setting boundaries. And we also talked about some ways that you can set boundaries. So I hope that this podcast episode has been helpful for you. If it has, please let me know. I will talk with you next week. Take care. Bye bye. Well, I hope that today's episode has been helpful for you. We talked about the importance of having boundaries with yourself. We discussed reasons why it can be hard to set boundaries with other people. And we talked about some simple ways of communicating your boundaries with others. I hope that this conversation has been helpful for you. If you found it to be helpful, please feel free to share it with someone who you think might benefit from this. But we're going to keep on talking about this discussion into next week. So I hope you all come back on next Friday. You take care. Bye.